Excuse me, sir. Could it be that you've mistaken your lodging?
Asked the manager of a luxurious inn, barely suppressing a laugh, his eyes twitching.
Our inn, with a history dating back to 1625, isn't really for people like you.
His gaze shifted to my wife, Catherine. He couldn't hold back his laughter any longer.
We're favored by celebrities and prominent politicians.
Stunned by his words, I looked at Catherine.
This inn isn't really a place for those of modest appearance, like yourselves.
Like he said, her dress is shabby. Her once white dress was now yellowed with age. But I couldn't bear his attitude towards my wife. In a fit of anger, I roughly pulled out 2 stay vouchers from my pocket. Due to my intense emotion, the vouchers were crumpled from being tightly clenched. Here's our reservation. Bob Smith is my name. The manager, without properly checking, coldly asked us to leave. He looked at us as if we were less than human, his eyes seemingly declaring that poor people like us had no rights. Catherine had been so looking forward to staying at this inn. The mix of anger and sadness made my eyes well up. I stepped forward, fists clenched. My name is Bob Smith, a nondescript office worker in a small company. I'm not exceptionally smart or particularly likable. Lacking any special talents, I'm probably off the promotion track at work. Just an average, maybe even below average guy. Constantly scolded by my boss and ridiculed by colleagues. But I have one thing to be proud of. My girlfriend, Catherine, she might not be called beautiful, but she's my pride. Kind, considerate, and especially skilled, she handles everything effortlessly, unlike me. I deeply love Catherine. Though I'm still maturing as a professional, I'm confident I can overcome any challenge to protect her. After finishing my morning work, I took out my smartphone during lunch break and gazed at the wallpaper. It was set to a picture of Catherine. Hiding behind the computer on my desk, I stare at Catherine on my phone. Her outfit on the wallpaper isn't exactly stylish. The dress that used to be white is now worn and yellowed. Catherine has no desire for material things. Unlike other women her age, who are usually interested in makeup and fashion, Catherine shows no interest. I once tried to give her a dress as a gift, but she refused, saying, "Let's save it for our marriage fund instead." Hesitating, I said, "But," Catherine replied, "clothes are just ornaments after all. I love you just as you are, Bob. I want you to love me as I am too. Of course, I love you just as you are.
Even if you're clumsy, I love you just the way you are now."
Flipping her worn-out dress hem, smiling like a blooming flower. Surely, no other woman would love a charmless man like me.
Hey, look at Bob, grinning at his girlfriend's photo again. Creepy guy.
Turning around, I saw my colleague William looking down at me. Around him were a few of his followers. In both school and the workplace, there's a social hierarchy. And I, being ordinary and clumsy, have always been at the bottom. And William reigns supreme at the top of the social hierarchy. Indeed, William is tall and handsome. And unlike me, he's competent. But his character is terrible. William's parents are the owners of a luxurious inn, a heritage property passed down through generations. Ideally, as their only son, he should be learning the ropes of management under his father. However, due to his bad attitude, His father disowned him and used connections to get him a job at our company to learn the basics of being a working adult. But has William reformed? The answer is no. Using his wealthy family background, he pressures other employees and offloads his work onto me and others. The bosses, aware of William's misbehavior, don't intervene, knowing his father and our president are acquainted. Emboldened, he blatantly plays games on his phone during work hours. The workplace is under his control.
Hand it over.
He forcefully snatched my phone. Give it back. William scanned my phone and sneered. Such an ugly girl suits you. A smirk barely contained the corner of his mouth. What did you say? I got angry and stood up.
What? Wanna fight?
William threatened.
I can get you fired right now by asking the president.
I was speechless. Unable to retort, I felt a burning sensation in the back of my nose, overwhelmed by my own helplessness.
How pathetic you are.
William said, tossing my phone on the floor and leaving with his entourage. I clenched my fist, ashamed I could only watch his back. Walking home from work, hunched over and staring at my shadow on the road, I heard the sound of an engine behind me. A car stopped right beside me on the road.
Hey!
Looking over, I saw it was William driving the car, roaring loudly. The car was a flashy yellow, a polished sports car. Beside him, there was a woman, heavily made up and draped in designer brands. Presumably his wife. Even from a distance, the pungent scent of her perfume wafted over. William's wife smirked at me mockingly.
This is Bob. I told you before. Gross, right?
Totally gross. Can't stand him.
Even so, he has a girlfriend. Can you believe it?
No way. How? What kind of taste does she have?
I saw her photo. She's plain and poor looking.
Typical.
They both burst into laughter in the car.
Funny, isn't it?
It is, indeed.
Satisfied, William smirked, not sparing me a second glance, and revved up the engine to drive away. Gray exhaust fumes trailed behind. Tears brimmed in my eyes. It was okay to mock me. But Catherine didn't deserve it. Yet, I had nothing to trump William with. I felt powerless and trudged home. Some time later, Catherine and I got married. With a few friends, we skipped the wedding ceremony. But Catherine said that she wants to go to the honeymoon. After reporting my marriage to my boss, news of my union with Catherine spread through the office. Here it comes. Here it comes. My premonition was spot on. William, accompanied by his usual entourage, appeared before me. I knew how to let his sarcasm roll off my back. The trick was to let it go in one ear and out the other.
Hey, so?
This is different. William's demeanor was unusually subdued. Looking down, and his followers seemed unusually quiet.
Heard you got married.
Yay, I replied bluntly.
I was wrong before. I went too far.
What? I couldn't hide my bewilderment. Yet William genuinely seemed dejected.
Use this if you'd like.
Pulling out 2 pieces of paper from his pocket, hesitantly, I took them. These are. I was incredulous.
These are stay vouchers for the high-end inn run by my family. You haven't had your honeymoon yet, right? Go there this coming holiday.
William, I thought of myself as a simple man, but my animosity towards him vanished in a moment.
It's a wedding gift, man. Think of it as a gesture between colleagues.
I was moved to the point of trembling.
Enjoy yourselves.
It's true that everyone has both good and bad sides. I saw the goodness in William. Thank you, I managed to say, my voice quivering with joy. William gave a shy smile, touched my shoulder, and left. After work, I rushed home. Seeing my excited state, Catherine asked, "What happened?" I explained everything and handed her the in-stay vouchers. Catherine jumped around happily.
He's really a nice guy.
I found myself agreeing. Yeah, he is. I felt a sense of irony about my own change of heart. On the day before the trip, Catherine was humming and packing joyfully. By her side was her cherished video camera. I smiled, looking forward to tomorrow. On the day of the trip, Catherine was in high spirits on the train to the inn, humming and polishing her video camera. Arriving at the nearest station to the inn, we walked for a while to reach it. The area was eerily quiet. Despite being a tourist spot, many inns we saw were closed. I tilted my head, feeling an odd sense of unease. We continued our walk through the silent streets for several minutes. We finally reached the high-end inn owned by William's father. We were speechless at the elegance of the inn.
Wow.
Her eyes sparkling. We entered the inn. Immediately, we could feel its history right from the entrance. Indeed, it's an inn with a long history. It feels like even the scent carries the weight of its past.
Welcome.
Greeted a man with neatly combed hair. Hello,
Hello.
we both said simultaneously. The employee gazed at us from head to toe as if appraising us. Excuse me, is there something wrong?
I apologize, but are you sure you have the right lodging?
What? I didn't understand him at first. But as realization dawned, anger bubbled up inside me. Isn't it rather rude to make such assumptions without checking first? Please call the manager.
I am the manager of this inn.
Seemingly struggling to suppress a laugh, his eyes twitching.
Our inn, with a history dating back to 1625, isn't really for people like you.
His gaze turned to my wife, Catherine. The manager couldn't hold back his laughter.
Even now, we are favored by major celebrities and politicians.
Shocked at his words, I looked at Catherine.
It seems people of your modest appearance are not typical guests here.
Catherine was indeed not a conventional beauty and wore somewhat shabby. Her once white dress was now yellowed with age. I couldn't stand seeing my wife Catherine being mocked. In a fit of anger, I roughly pulled out 2 crumpled reservation vouchers from my pocket. The vouchers were wrinkled because I had gripped them tightly in a moment of intense emotion. Here are the stay vouchers. We have a reservation. Bob Smith. The manager coldly said, "Please leave," without even checking properly. He looked at us as if we were less than human, his eyes seemingly declaring that poor people like us had no rights. My wife Catherine was so excited about staying at this inn. The way she was mocked filled me with a mix of anger and frustration, making my eyes well up with tears. I clenched my fist and took a step forward. I realized it then. This had to be a setup by William. I was a fool to have trusted him even for a moment.
All right, we'll leave.
Catherine said calmly. Catherine, She stopped me from reacting further and pulled me outside. Once outside, her face broke into a sly smile. I understood her intent. This was a situation where I needed to rely on her. Swallowing my pride, I agreed. We needed a place to stay for the night. Our spirits dampened. We found an available guest house to stay in. The exterior looked like it was on the verge of collapse, but surprisingly, once inside, it was a different story. The cleaning was meticulous, and everything was neatly arranged. The middle-aged innkeeper who greeted us was extremely cordial and attentive. The dinner was delicious, and despite the unexpected troubles, we felt content. While the innkeeper was clearing the dishes, I asked a question that had been on my mind. Why are so many inns closed in such a famous tourist spot? She stopped her work and gave a wry smile.
I shouldn't be telling our guests this, but
She began to explain with a voice that was almost tearful. Actually, for several years now, the high-end inn where we were turned away has been manipulating local suppliers to jack up the prices of food and supplies to more than double the normal rate in this area. You might think it would be simple to just buy from other suppliers, but it's not that easy. Even if an attempt is made to order from new wholesalers, somehow the high-end inn quickly gets wind of it and manages to secure those suppliers for themselves. The harassment didn't stop there. The upscale inn's affiliates flooded internet review sites with negative comments about the inns in this area, damaging their reputation. How terrible! I was speechless. Then I understood why, despite being a tourist spot, so many inns were closed. They had been driven out of business by that high-end inn.
So, they monopolize the customers.
Catherine surmised, to which the innkeeper sadly nodded.
we're actually considering closing down this month.
What? We were stunned.
You might be our last guests.
Despite the circumstances that led us here, I grew to really like this inn and the innkeeper. I even felt grateful to the hateful manager and William.
Did the harassment start when the current manager took over?
Catherine inquired.
Yes, exactly. We got along with them before that.
I see. Understood.
Catherine suddenly said, taking the innkeeper's hand.
Leave it to me.
What?
The innkeeper looked puzzled, unable to grasp Catherine's true intentions. Catherine responded with a wink. The next day, after finishing our trip, I headed to work. I saw William smirking. I am convinced that he made it up. I was almost amused by William's meticulousness in teaming up with the manager for this harassment. What's going to happen now? Was the only thought in my mind, as I could only watch and wait. A few days later, things took a sudden turn. William, looking panicked, rushed up to me.
Hey, Bob, I didn't know about this.
He was sweating profusely. What? I replied calmly.
Your wife is a YouTuber.
Yea, she is.
Because of her, my family's in is.
William seemed on the verge of a breakdown. Why should I tell someone who's not even a friend? Little did anyone know, my wife Catherine's job was that of a YouTuber. Moreover, she had well over 500,000 subscribers. Her main activity involved visiting various places, leisure facilities, inns, and hotels, and introducing them in her videos. Catherine's unpretentious demeanor and her willingness to speak her mind without pandering, even in high-end inns and hotels, have made her quite well known in the community. she has become a fairly famous YouTuber. Of course, she covered William's family's high-end inn in her video. Since then, that inn started receiving numerous cancellations, while the inn where the kind innkeeper hosted us was now overwhelmed with bookings. The innkeeper, in tears of joy, called us saying, "It's all thanks to you. Please visit any time." Apart from the innkeeper, someone else called us. It was William's father. He apologized for the manager's behavior towards us. Catherine informed William's father about the manager monopolizing the area's supplies, hiring shills, and posting defamatory comments about other inns online. William's father seemed at a loss for words on the other end of the phone. It appeared that the manager had been acting unilaterally.
I will fire him immediately.
William's father was not as foolish as William. He apologized repeatedly and indeed seemed to have dismissed the manager. Later, we heard from the innkeeper that the area was slowly regaining its vitality. While it's a bit pitiful for William's father, their inn started losing business and soon faced financial difficulties. As for William, cut off from his family's financial support, he quickly fell into poverty. His wife, always decked out in branded clothes, left him. William became isolated as his entourage drifted away. They say a friendship lasts as long as money endures, and William was a living example of this. Left alone, William tried to cozy up to me, but I continued to ignore him. Eventually, without notifying his boss, he just disappeared one day. Rumor has it that the inn he used to boast about went under, and his family was left in debt. Meanwhile, Catherine and I are living happily and contentedly. A few years later, Catherine's YouTube channel surpassed 1 million subscribers, and I quit my job to assist her with video editing. Life is unpredictable. Throughout my school life and professional life, I always found myself at the bottom of the social ladder. But sometimes, a small event can completely turn things around. However, unlike William, I will never look down on or reject the weak. I understand their feelings. I feel that Catherine's in my life is heading in a good direction. If we, through Catherine's activities, can lend a hand to people in need, like that innkeeper, I would be happy. I believe that's my role, having always been the underdog,